There's only two presidents in American history who've come to office and left with fewer jobs than they came to office. And the other was a guy we all know very well. I call, anyway, Trump is one of them.
Anyway, Trump is one of them. He couldn't quite remember who the other one is because his brain, she's a no good. She's a broke. She's a no work. That brain of his, a lunch a bucket of Joe. Bom, 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 ba-dum, bom, ba-dum. Ah, yes. Joe Biden, he did an interview with Black Entertainment Television because, the Democrats and black people, they go way back to the bullwhip and the plantation. So Democrats just trying to keep it all together. Vote for Nathan Bedford Forrest. 4 more years of Jim Crow. We got Joe Biden there. Racial jungle, not for his kids. That's for other people's kids. Indeed. Lot of crazy. Happy Thursday to you and welcome back. Hope you had a great hump day. It was hump day yesterday, at least in the Clinton household, and we all know what that means. And poor Hillary Clinton. But don't feel sorry for her because she's still lurking in the wings with a blow dart gun and a curare-tipped dart, looking for an opening to get to Joe Biden's carotid artery because Hillary believes that she is destined to be president of the United States and she doesn't care what anybody has to say, including her husband. She'll throw an ashtray and bounce it off his head, as she did while they were living in the White House. But setting that aside, remarkable things going on, so many remarkable. And Joe Biden, let me share with you the headlines and just a quick summary of what's going on in Joe Biden's media universe and in Joe Biden's political universe today, because the debate is now, what day will Joe Biden decide to step aside or pass the torch? The two-party issued phrases that are acceptable. The headline from The Hill, left-wing outfit, Washington, D.C. Schiff, Shiftless. They call him Shiftless. The inchworm, his wife calls him the inchworm. Shiftless calls for Biden to, quote, pass the torch, is the headline. Carolyn Vakil writing at The Hill. Representative Adam Schiff, California, on Wednesday became one of the most prominent and high-ranking Democrats, to call for President Biden to withdraw from the presidential race. Schiff, who is running for California Senate and is likely a shoo-in to win, they're going to send back the most dishonest man in Washington, this time with elevated status and stature, said in a statement first reported by the Los Angeles Times that while Biden has been one of the most consequential presidents in our nation's history, he noted that our nation is at a crossroads. He's been consequential, not in a positive way. What do we have? 250 million illegal aliens from China and Uganda and Uzbekistan and members of ISIS and Venezuelan gang members. And, what is the number is presumably over 10 million at this point. A second Trump presidency will undermine the very foundation of our, fill in the blank now, what is it? Of our democracy, he was president for 4 years. Our democracy was better, more prosperous, more peaceful, more secure. And I have serious concerns, Adam Schiff said, about whether the president can defeat Donald Trump in November. He explained that's all they can do is talk about power. While the choice to withdraw from the campaign is President Biden's alone, I believe it is time for him to pass the torch, he continued. They love torches. They use them to burn police cars and businesses and police stations and courthouses and churches, like the Church of the Presidents across from the White House, which they torched when they were attacking the White House for 3 days in an insurrection injuring 180 police officers. But never mind that. And in doing so, the inchworm said, secure his legacy of leadership by allowing us to defeat Donald Trump in the upcoming election. Shifless noted that he would support whoever ended up being the Democratic nominee. See how it is? That means not Kamala Harris, because it would presumably be Kamala Harris. She is the vice president. She is a WOC, a woman of color, and you can't skip over her, but they can because they're Democrats and they're nothing if not racists. So Schiff noted that he would support whoever ended up being the Democratic nominee, even if it remained Biden, arguing that the stakes are just too high. The rhetoric is what got Donald Trump shot in the head less than a week ago. But they keep it up because they're the left, and the left kills all of their political enemies. Just look at the 20th century. Now, here we are in the 21st century, and they've erased all memory of the 20th century in the public consciousness. The Democrat won a contested Senate Democrat primary that included fellow California representatives Katie Porter. Katie Porter is the one who said that her daughter believes that, 9-year-old daughter believes that the earth is on fire and we're all going to die soon. What does the next election really matter if the earth is on fire and we're all going to die soon? That's what I want to know.
I told my 9-year-old daughter that I was going to be speaking with you, and I said, what do you think about climate change? And
Greta
she said,
Thunberg.
the earth is on fire and we're all going to die soon. And I asked her how that made her feel.
How does it feel?
She said it made her feel angry.
And then she burned a police car. Her 9-year-old daughter was, and then overdosed on fentanyl. It was very sad. So Katie Porter, that's Katie Porter running against the inchworm, and Barbara Lee, who is severely mentally ill, completely insane. And so there's Adam Shifless saying, Joe Biden, he got to go. He no good. And I don't care who it is, but the can't be Joe Biden. And that's Shifless. Now, he is a fanny boy for Nancy Pelosi. He is Nancy Pelosi bootlick and luggage carrier, horse holder. And so Adam Shifless, it is widely accepted in Democrat and media circles, but I repeat myself, that he would have to get the okay from Pelosi to come out and say that in public. And in addition to that, the second story from the Reuters news agency, Schumer, Pelosi increased pressure on Biden to step aside, U.S. media reports. See, Reuters is technically British, but they're global. Top Democrats, including U.S. Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer and former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, I thought she's Speaker Emeritus, isn't that what they call her, have increased pressure on President Biden to withdraw from his re-election campaign over concerns he cannot defeat Republican challenger Donald Trump. They're afraid that that guy shooting him with a rifle made him stronger. And let me, President Trump, obviously. And let me say also that I kind of think that President Trump's demeanor has changed since he was shot. His physiognomy, his facial representation, his expression of his inner being, his physiognomy has changed, I think. Noticed it immediately after the shooting. And I got to say, does he look like a changed man after the shooting? Has his demeanor changed? I think the answer is yes. He also will be delivering the big speech tonight at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. And he said it started out as kind of a fire and brimstone speech, and now it's all about unity and bringing us together. And it's going to be fascinating to watch. I think it's going to be very highly rated and very much worth watching. A big event in American political history, just as last Saturday's rally was in Pennsylvania. Now, so former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have increased pressure on Joe Biden to withdraw from his re-election campaign over concerns he cannot beat Donald Trump, all they care about. Schumer told Biden in a meeting on Saturday that it would be better for the country and the Democratic Party, which is all they really care about, which is obvious, just look at what's happened over the last 3.5 years. If he ended his re-election campaign, ABC Fake News reported. George Snuffleupagus of the Clinton White House and ABC News. U.S. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, raised by his virulent anti-Semite uncle, Professor Leonard Jeffries, has expressed similar views directly to Biden, ABC News reported, citing a source familiar with the conversation. CNN reported on Wednesday that Pelosi, too, had told Biden polling shows he cannot defeat Trump and that the president could destroy the Democrat chances of winning back control of the House of Representatives and the Senate and the White House and the bureaucracy which they use to impale their political enemies. And their political enemies are many. So Joe Biden is getting the screws put to him by the Inquisition, that is the Democrat Party. And honestly, I believe behind the curtain, Torquemada is Barack Hussein Obama, interestingly enough. Biden says, quote, medical condition could prompt him to drop out, quote, if doctors came to me. And then hours later, doctors came to him and said, you got the Wuhan. You got the woo. You got the woo. Ba-da-ba-ba. And medical condition. Now, that's kind of strange because if you remember the old medical condition, Michael, I think I've got to get to the old medical condition soundbite first. And this is an interesting one in the New York Post. Biden says medical condition could prompt him to drop out if doctors came to him. President Biden said in a new interview he would consider dropping out if he was diagnosed with a medical condition by doctors, giving the clearest indication yet that he may be faltering in his vow to seek a second term. The 81-year-old president made the remark to BET in an interview taped on Tuesday and aired on Wednesday, asked what it would take to prompt him to reconsider his candidacy. But remember what he said in 2020 that raised an eyebrow here, but not with George Stephanopoulos or the New York Times.
When we disagree, it'll be just like, so far, it's been just like when Barack and I did.
What?
If I reach something where there's a fundamental disagreement we have based on a moral principle, I'll develop some disease and say I have to resign.
A moral principle, a fundamental disagreement. He'll develop a disease and say he's got to resign. So years ago, he told us that he was going to be perfectly willing in the future to fake a medical event so that he could lie to the American people about everything that's going on in his world. And the lie would be that he's developed a medical condition and he has to go. And he telegraphed that, right? That's what he did. And then what did he say yesterday to BET? He said something kind of interestingly similar to Black Entertainment Television yesterday.
Would you be willing to be transitional even at this point? Would you be willing to even look at the idea that if you get in, perhaps in a year and a half or two, you would look to your, in your words, very capable vice president to carry it over the finish
very
line?
capable. He was lying.
Only if I was told that there was some medical condition that I had. And that's not the case.
Yeah. Only if I was told there was, and that's not the case. Hours later, he was diagnosed with COVID, canceled his events in Las Vegas, Nevada, got on Air Force One, flew to Delaware, went to the big house on the water that he bought with the ill-gotten gains and not with his government salary. And everything is fine when you're a Democrat. But Joe Biden, tick, 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 pal of mine, because he can hear it. He can see it coming. Pelosi, Schumer, Inchworm, Hakeem Jeffries, behind the curtain, Barack Obama, and lurking in the shadows, Hillary Clinton. Bill wants to move back into the White House because he got a lot of mogambo when he was living in the White House, and he just wants to move back in. Figure Hillary will have a full-time job. He'll have free run of the place. He'll keep recommending that she take overseas trips so he can have the house to himself. You know that the best-selling Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifier uses Oxy technology that helps to quickly destroy a whole lot of viruses and odors and mold and a lot more stuff floating in the air. Thousands of 5-star reviews on Al Gore's amazing internet. Works like a champ. We've got 2 of them at home ourselves. Any smell will vanish after just a few seconds with the Eden Pure Thunderstorm being on. Litter boxes, trash cans, dirty diapers, left-wing protesters, no match for the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. The powerful thunderstorm sends out these O3 molecules. They go under and behind furniture and help to destroy odors. Nothing can hide from the thunderstorm. And listen to this. No filters to buy and replace over and over again like a lot of air filters. Saves you money and scheduling and hassle. And right now, because you hang with me, you can save $200 American on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for a whole home protection. You're going to get 3 units for under $200, so you can put one in your bedroom, in your teenager's room, to your smelly uncle's house, anywhere you like to breathe clean, fresh air. All you have to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com. EdenPureDeals.com, and you use the discount code Chris3, and you're going to save $200. That's EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is CHRIS and the number 3. Bum, bum, bum. All right, so I got Joe Biden's interview with BET. More of that and more dumb stuff, he said. And the clock is ticking out loud, just as I predicted in my Nostradamus-like way so long ago. Here it comes, that light at the end of the tunnel. You know what it is. Got that coming up. And also the big convention in Milwaukee last night. And boy, a lot of good stuff out of there. A lot of good stuff out of there as well. Coming up. President Trump, big speech tonight. It's a big deal. The left is very angry, as we know. It is a day of the week. Let's go to the telephones, and then I got much more President Biden being President Biden in the BET interview. Wait till you hear some of the racist, stupid stuff that he said. Let's go to Sid, calling from Los Angeles, California. El Sid, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, Chris. How are you doing?
Very well, very well. What do you know? What do you say?
A couple points. Well, the first point I have to make is he's waiting for a doctor's note. I guess he's waiting for Dr. Jill to give him a note that he can leave the office.
Yeah, if the doctors come to him, then he might decide to step aside and pass the torch.
So I'm just wondering if Dr. Jill is the doctor that he's waiting for, that note.
Could be. She's got a doctor of bad education or something.
Right, and the other point I want to make is the Secret Service, how they value safety. They're worried about one of their members on a sloped roof. They want to protect him, but they don't want to protect the president when there's a threat alert. So I just wondering how they assess safety in their whole job. I thought their job was to protect the president. Yeah,
it's going to be a dangerous job sometimes, including standing on rooftops. Yeah, that's Kim. I don't think she's long for that job. So many things to talk about all at the same time. And that's fine. It's just how news happens, how it comes in. There is a report now that the creepy gunman that shot President Trump in Pennsylvania, killed a 50-year-old former firefighter and fire chief, father of 2, and wounded 2 other people, mass shooting, 4 people shot. He was on a gaming platform. Surprise, surprise, isn't that where all the crazy gunmen from the every school shooting you hear about? Gaming platform. And he wrote, July 13th will be my premiere. Trump rally gunman set on gaming platform before shooting. Sources say investigators are trying to determine motive. That's a good idea. For Thomas Matthew Crooks. And investigators are working to determine a motive behind the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. Found a message posting to the gaming platform Steam. Steam, it's called. It's not Stream, it's Steam. And that they believe was authored by the suspect, in which he said that, quote, July 13th will be my premiere. Watch as it unfolds. That's the totality of the quote, according to 3 law enforcement sources briefed on the probe. Investigators have also found the phone of Thomas Matthew Crooks 20 years old. Internet searches for both Trump and President Joe Biden, sources familiar with the investigation told ABC Fake News. The suspect had searched for the dates of Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, and for those of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Probably just wanted to go to riot like, so many people that love Joe Biden. The suspect's phone was one of several devices that law enforcement investigators had collected as they worked to piece together a timeline of the assassination attempt against former President Trump during a Saturday rally. The FBI on Sunday had identified Crooks as the suspect. The U.S. Secret Service said snipers had killed Crooks at the scene. They're counter snipers, actually. Firefighter Corey Compatore, a father who was attending the rally, was killed. 2 other bystanders were injured, officials said. I'm also aware of the fact that he was not only on this gaming site, but he was also fond of going to another site called Discord. Discord, which is an online what do you call it? A talk site where people chat back and forth. But on Discord, apparently, the system automatically deletes your communications very quickly, making it more difficult for FBI and other law enforcement, maybe Secret Service. I think FBI is the lead. I know FBI is the lead on this. But he was fond of going on this site called Discord to communicate with people. And now ABC News, at least, is reporting based on what they say is 3 sources. They weren't so sure about the first 2, so they got a third, saying July 13th will be my premiere. Watch as it unfolds. Premiere is a strange word to use, but obviously strange things going on in the mind of 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks. Interesting stuff, and I've got a lot more for you on that, but as I said, I want to get to Joe Biden because his brain is broken, and we're getting closer and closer to Joe Biden passing the torch and stepping aside. And the every time he talks to anybody, he walks closer to the exit. And let's go to, we want to start at number 1 with Joe Biden on NAACP. Is that where you want to start? Yeah. Okay. Let's start at number 1 with Joe Biden. The NAACP interview with a gentleman named Ed Gordon. Ed Gordon talking to Joe Biden. BET, the conversation was Tuesday. It aired yesterday. And here's Joe Biden making up a new imaginary story about a black friend that he had as a child whose name was Mouse. Because as you know, Joe Biden grew up in the Jewish community in a synagogue. He also grew up in the Puerto Rican community as a knife-wielding dancer, I think. He is like in West Side Story or something like that. And also he was all about, when he's on, the Democrats always do this when they're on black radio or black TV interview. Suddenly they always carry hot sauce, and I ain't by no ways tired, because Democrats couldn't be bigger clowns. But Joe Biden talking to Ed Gordon on BET.
I have real friends. So many of you had my back, and I think I've had yours as well. And I will never forget it. Got a couple Delaware folks there still. And one of my best friends, when I was a lifeguard in the projects. His
lifeguard.
His nickname is Mouse. Mousy, there you are, pal.
Yeah, nickname, and I apologize. This is actually from the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And Joe Biden went there to lie to them for a while, because that's what he does. And he's talking about how when he was in the hood, in the ghetto, in the rough and tumble, he was a lifeguard because, swimming. And here's his buddy nicknamed Mouse. And it's all because he's like hanging with the gangs, because he's down with the black thing, the black experience. You may remember when he was a lifeguard, he also had some run-ins with Corn Pop, and Corn Pop he had a razor, and it was a rusty razor. Corn Pop was a tough dude.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
He was a bad dude.
And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
And a bad boys.
And I did. And back in those days, to show how things have changed.
Yeah, show.
One of the things you had to use, if you used pomade in your hair, you had to wear a bathing cap.
Pomade. You had to wear a bathing cap. And then he said, hey, Esther. He called him Esther because Esther Williams was big when Corn Pop was hanging out. She used to swim in movies in the 1940s, and Joe Biden would hang with Corn Pop, and he was a bad dude, and he hung with some bad dudes and then there was Mouse. Don't forget about Mouse. So he goes to the NAACP and makes up a new story about a new black guy he used to know. Pretty amazing stuff. And then, this is a remarkable story. Talking to the NAACP, he made up a story about putting a cap on rent increases in the United States, which would be completely unconstitutional and illegal, and he doesn't have the authority to do that. But he likes to lie to people a lot, especially black people. So he came in and he told the NAACP this ridiculous lie that he just made up about putting a cap on how much you could increase rent because, black people and rent. I thought that rent thing was gay people, not black. But here's Joe Biden at the NAACP.
The idea that corporate-owned housing is able to raise your rent $300-400 a month or something. Under what I'm about to announce, they can't raise it more than $55.
Oh, well, that's isn't that wonderful?
Raise my rent.
Absolutely, raise my rent. That made everybody think of Cleavon Little and Blazing Saddles, I'm quite sure. Yeah, the corporate. No, I think I don't know. That's corporate. They can raise your rent $300-400 a month, but he's going to put a cap on that of $55 a month. Well, that's not true, and it turns out Biden accidentally announced the $55 cap on rent increases after struggling to read the teleprompter, which said 5%. Said 5%. But the number 5 was there, and then there was the percentage point symbol, and he said, well, I'll just make it $55 because what do I know? President Biden paused and visibly struggled to read the teleprompter before making the nearly impossible promise of a $55 cap on rent increases all across the United States.
Under what I'm about to announce, they can't raise it more than $55.
Hey, big round of applause. Yay, that's, yeah, sure. He was speaking at the 115th NAACP National Convention in Las Vegas, part of an extensive outreach to court black voters who he doesn't want living in a racial jungle, just like his kids going to school in a racial jungle in Delaware. During the speech, he intended to propose a 5% cap on rent increases for tenants under major landlords, but he couldn't read the teleprompter, so he just made something up instead. That's just fine because he's Joe Biden and his brain is no good. All right, now, let's, because he's not a racist, here's Joe Biden, and this is where he's doing the sit-down interview now with BET, Black Entertainment Television, which is on your cable dial next to white entertainment television. And here is the interview, Joe Biden with BET interviewer Ed Gordon. And Joe Biden is trying to remember and failing to remember the name of his own Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, who is African-American, was a four-star Army general, career Army officer, obviously, became Secretary of Defense because the left loves to have the military in charge. We have a tradition in America of having civilians in charge of the military, civilian control of the military, but not the left. They goose step and salute the tanks going by in Red Square. Here's Joe Biden on BET struggling, failing to remember the name of his own Secretary of Defense.
It's all about treating people with dignity. And it's about making sure that, look, for example, look at the heat I'm getting. Because I named the Secretary of Defense, a black man. I named Ketanji Brown. I mean, because of the people I've named.
What? I'm sorry, what? It's important to treat people with dignity, even if you can't remember their names. The black guy, so look at the heat I'm getting, he said, for naming a black man. Then he says, Ketanji Brown, who he named to the Supreme Court, and she doesn't know what a woman is. And her name is Ketanji Brown Jackson, not Ketanji Brown. So he actually forgot Ketanji Brown Jackson's name, and he forgot Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's name in the same answer on BET, Black Entertainment Television, while he was trying to show how good he is to the black person by forgetting their names. He named them, then he forgot their names because his brain doesn't work. And he said, look at the heat I'm getting. What? You never, for naming Lloyd Austin to be the Secretary of Defense, there was no heat whatsoever. There wasn't then, there isn't now. So he lied, look at the heat I'm getting. Then he couldn't remember Lloyd Austin's name. Then he got Ketanji Brown Jackson's name wrong because he's pandering to the black vote. Doing a heck of a job, too. Here's Joe Biden saying that he was only supposed to be, president very temporarily because he's kind of a big deal. And then something else was going to happen, but he doesn't know what.
I originally ran, you may remember it, I said I was going to be a transitional candidate.
What?
And I thought that I'd be able to move from this to pass it on to someone else. But I didn't anticipate things getting so divided. And quite frankly, I think...
So he's got to stay.
The only thing age brings a little bit of wisdom. And I think I've demonstrated that I know how to get things done for the country, in spite of the fact that we couldn't get it done.
For Mexico.
But there's more to do, and I'm reluctant to walk away from that.
Yeah, he hasn't completely wrecked everything yet. Not every woman has been raped and murdered by an illegal alien across the country. So soon, he promises. So he was going to be a transitional president. I thought maybe he was talking about gender, but that was only part of it, as it turns out. Amazing stuff. Yeah, supposed to be transitional, but now we're so divided. Well, you're one of the sources of those divisions, you little Hitler racists. What else? The misogynist. Let's just start going down the list of names that he's used to describe half the country while he's bringing the country together under the Spanish language education. Ed Gordon and Joe Biden.
Is there anything that you would look to, you personally, not anybody else, not other pundits, not even perhaps family members, that you would look to say, if I see that, I will reevaluate?
If there had some medical condition that emerged, if the doctors came to me and said, you got this problem, that problem.
The Wuhan? Like maybe the Wu? Because yesterday you came down with the Wu. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, and he told us years ago in 2020 that if there's any disagreement, he would just develop a fantastical, non-existent medical condition and step down because of that. He warned us. Barack Obama warned us of the fundamental transformation of America. Barack Obama warned us that we all better learn to speak Spanish. Joe Biden warned us that he was going to try to bring the country together, unite us. And he always produces the opposite of the stated results, so should come as no surprise. Hey, where was the line of questioning about President Trump being shot at a rally? Did that come up at the BET interview? Was that a big topic? Because you'd think, well, the first chance you have to interview the President of the United States after his opposing candidate, the opposition, was shot in the head, maybe that had come up in the interview. Did Ed Gordon bring that up? Interesting. It's good to be a Democrat, isn't it? And then, Ketanji Brown. No, that's the color of her skin, but not her name. And who's your defense secretary again? Where's that heat coming from on choosing him as the Secretary of Defense? Everything he says is either lie, a misunderstanding, or he just can't remember what it is he's trying to. If he could remember, he'd come up with another lie.
Look at the heat I'm getting because I named the Secretary of Defense, a black man.
Hi, Joe Biden talking to Ed Gordon at BET, and he claims that, he's still, remember what he said, he'd take Trump out behind the gym or a barn or something and he'd beat him up, which would never happen on the best day of his life. Joe Biden on BET.
I'm only 3 years older than Trump, okay?
Yeah, but look at you.
I think I'm in a little better physical shape than he is.
You think so,
The point is, though, that it's not unreasonable for people to say, wait a minute, you're 81 years old.
Yeah, it's not unreasonable for people to say, but it's all the stuff you get wrong and mix up and confuse and falling down and falling over on bikes and can't go up steps and your wife is your front group and here he is. Apparently, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was giving away free internet in the 1940s.
Make sure there's access to affordable internet, just like in Roosevelt's time, back in earlier than that, making sure there was electricity and agriculture in the rural areas.
Got to make sure.
That's all. It takes time for it to happen.
Internet.
And so
FDR's time.
It's just taking time for people to see it.
It's taking time for people to see, just like FDR and the internet. And before that, with electricity, which Joe remembers fondly when they first turned on the lights. Here's Biden boarding Air Force One through the children's steps, and he was struggling to get up the steps in Las Vegas. And a reporter asked him how he's feeling.
How are you feeling? Mr. President, how do you feel? How do you feel?
He says, I feel good. He had just been diagnosed with the Wuhan Red Death, and he was flying back to Delaware and canceling his events. There was a funny moment. I don't think I can get to it now, can I? A funny moment when I heard on the radio today, Kevin Corke of the Fox News Channel giving a report on Joe Biden that made me laugh because Joe Biden, he says a lot of stuff. A lot of it's not true. And that's where I come in because, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN are not going to tell you.